Okay. Hi, good evening. Just a few words, a few reflections about the Cheder Meraglim, and what we could take out from it. This is a classical case of where Lashon Hara had devastating consequences, and it's something which we need to understand. The Chazal tell us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Jewish people, Atem b'chisem b'chia shochinam, ani kvalachem b'chia l'doros. You cried for nothing. I'm going to give you something to cry about for all generations, because we know that the night that they cried, because they bought the story of the spies, they bought it, was the night of Tisha B'Av. And ever since then, it was established in the cosmos that's like there's a crack on that date, that it's easy for bad things to happen then. That's why the Churban of the two Batei Mikdashot was Nechrav on Tisha B'Av, and also the expulsion from Spain was on Tisha B'Av, to say that they had to leave. So it's a Yom Muchan L'Peronius because they bought the story of the Meraglim. Now, it sounds like, it's out of proportion, right? They were fooled. Right? The Meraglim came back with a story. Right? They bought it. Right? They cried. God said, you cried for nothing. Now you're going to do something to cry for. So it sounds like, for all generations. Yes, pretty heavy. You have to understand, how that's justified,
So wrong.
That's right. That's what we're asking.
They didn't kill anybody.
What?
And then also they said after the base of English, the next base of English won't be any Tisha B'Av.
Right. Well, by the final Geula. Right. Yeah, but until then, it's been generations that we've been suffering. So now there's, everyone knows on the night of Tisha B'Av, and some read it during the day also, we read the Megillah of Eicha as a very, except for the very last parak, it's structured in the order of the Aleph base. It first starts off with Sukkim, starting with Aleph, and then Beis, then Gimel, right? Except for the very last chapter. Except that in chapters 2 till the second to last, there's a deviation, right? That the pei and ayin are inverted. In the regular order of Yahweh, samach, ayin, pei. But in the psukim of Megillah Eicha, the psukim that start with samach, then psukim that start with pei, and then it goes back to ayin, and then it resumes tzadi. Okay? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin notes that, and says this is because of the sin of the Meraglim. Sha'amru befihem, pei, they said with their mouths, mashalora u beineim, ayin. Right, they said with their mouths what they didn't see with their eyes. So they put their mouth before their eyes. So pei, before ayin, before eye. Right, it's a Gemara. So the question is like this. There should be no psukim with ayin. If they said with their mouths what they didn't see with their eyes, so it should be no psukim with ayin. Similar to, we have a precedent like that. In Ashrei, there's no pasuk that starts with nun. Right? Nafla, lasifa, because nun, nefila, right? We don't want that. Right? So, Eicha, you should have without any psukim that don't, no psukim that start with ayin. When you put the pei before the ayin, you should have no pasuk starting with ayin at all. Okay? So, there's a very interesting Rashi I'd like to read to you in Parshas Bereshis. When was the very first instance of Lashon Hara in the Torah? Very first time. Oh, no. Earlier than that. A day didn't go by without Lashon Hara. Right? A day didn't go by. Right? The Nachash, the snake, spoke Lashon Hara about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? So, right. That's the first day of history of humanity. The first day was Lashon Hara. The media was there from the beginning. Right? We'll get back to that in a second. Right, the media. So the Nachash is speaking Lashon Hara about HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the woman. God said, you're going to die, you're not going to die. God knows. On the day you eat from it, your eyes will open. You'll be like God himself, knowing the difference between good and evil. All right, so so he's saying that God's afraid. He's not letting you eat from that tree because he's afraid what you're going to become. You'll be just like him. That's why he's withholding the tree from you. So what does it say immediately after that? So Chava listened to this. Vatera isha, the woman saw, kitova eitz lamachal, it looks good to eat. V'chitavo inayim, it's pleasurable to the eyes. V'nechmad eitz lahaskil, and it seems that you'll have success from eating from the tree. Right? All right, so she took from the fruit and ate. She also gave her husband, and he ate with her. Right, and the rest is history. Now, the interesting thing is, the words open up. Vatera isha, the woman saw that the fruit is actually good. She saw the tree before. Adam Arishan had shown her the tree and said, "We're not allowed to eat from this thing." And she's acting over here as if, after hearing the Nachash, right, she's seeing it for the first time. She knew it was identified to her that this, we eat from everything else except from this one. So there's no doubt that Rashi was bothered by this. So listen to what Rashi says, clearly going on the words Vatere ha'isha, and the woman saw. Says Rashi, Ra'asa devarav shel Nachash. She saw what the Nachash was saying. Right? Ve'nola ve'mina, so it made, sounded good to her, and she believed it. So Vatera Isha, says Rashi, is not going on, the physical, optical, image of the tree. She saw what the Nachash was saying. She liked it, and she believed it. An amazing thing, amazing principle being taught over here. That the way the mind works, right? That once you believe something, right? You start seeing it that way. You start seeing it that way. So what Rashi's saying and the simple pshat and the pasuk are not a contradiction. When she bought it, right? So now she never heard this editorial before about what the tree is all about. Right, now she hears the Nachash's take on it, that God is holding this tree back. This tree is actually good for you, and that's why God is withholding it from you. Hey, now it looks different. Looks different. Right, she now looks at the tree differently because of what she heard from the Nachash. An amazing thing about the power of Lashon Hara. Right, that why Chazal talk extensively about its destructive force, and that it kills three people: the one who said it, the one who heard it, and the one who you were talking about. It's very, very severe lashonos in Chazal about Lashon Hara, and now we're beginning to understand why. Because if this story actually gets, catches on, it changes the perspective on reality. And perception is reality. If it changes your perception and it changes your perspective, you refashioned reality. Right? And you made a mutant reality come back to life. With this, we can understand an interesting halacha in Hilchos Lashon Hara. Chazal say this black and white, the halacha Sfarim bring it. Who's worse? The guy who spoke Lashon Hara? The guy who concocted the story? Or the guy who heard it? The guy who listened. Who's worse? Who's worse? No, the guy who heard it. Now you're right. It's counterintuitive, right? You think, right? Yeah, right. So you think it's counterintuitive, that halacha, because this guy is the one who spun the whole tale. He's like real evil. He's the one who acted with malice. The other guy is the innocent, bystander. He's a victim.
So
No.
Why did Miriam get Saras in that arrow?
Excuse me?
Why did Miriam get Saras in that arrow?
Yeah, very good question. Right? Could be Aaron didn't believe it, right? Okay, but that's the point. It doesn't mean Hashomea. It's Hamekablo, the Mekabel, the one who accepts the Lashon Hara as fact. Because here's the thing that could be true, right? That the guy who's saying the Lashon Hara knows he's lying, right? But the Mekabel is accepting it as fact. And now the lethal force of Lashon Hara, right, that it changed, because if it's believed, it changes a person's perspective, and now reality itself will see in his eyes forever, the way he now understands it because of the Lashon Hara. It's not going to look that way like Vatera Isha. So he's the one who made a bunch of lies become reality by believing in it. That's what Rashi said. She saw what the Nochshar saying, Ve'enola ve'heminaso. It made, she liked it and she believed in it. The Makabel who believes the Lashon Hara makes that lie become reality. It says that, in the sense it becomes the perspective of the people, and that, for all intents and purposes, now is the reality as far as the people who believe in it are concerned. It's not God's reality, but this guy who has to do business with these people, and he's been badmouthed, his life is over. Right? Because it's become the new reality.
How could it get undone?
What?
In this particular case, Hashem said you made a mistake. In regular life, once Lashon Hara, somebody's Makabel Lashon Hara.
That's right. It's really very hard to do tshuva for. Now you could understand the severity of what Lashon Hara is, because it really changes reality. When you think about it for a second, you can understand a certain mechanics to it, how it's a real misuse of the power of speech. Because how did God create the world? With speech. Vayom Elokim Yehi. Now, of course, what we have to try to do is, with our power of speech that God granted us, which we know comes from the neshama, like everyone knows the famous Targum Onkelos, Vayipach Ba'apav Nishmas Chayim, when God blew in the divine soul, man became a creature of life. Onkelos on the words Nefesh Chaya says Ruach Memalala, a speaking spirit. Our capacity of speech is divine. Now, we are supposed to, with our power of speech, also create. Like the Navi says, Vasim dvarai beficha, lintoa shemayim, v'liyoset aretz, v'leimel tzion amiata. I put my words in your mouth, that God put, the power of speech in us, that we should also uphold the sky and found the earth, and that's how you are imi. You are with me. You're partners with me in creation. But that's why we have to be very careful with our speech, that it really reflects reality. Right? But you could use the power of speech to create an alternate reality. And how does it work? Why should evil speech, create a warped reality? Because people believe in it. And then you believe in it, you buy it. Once you buy it, you can't help but see it that way. So now we can understand what it means in Megillas Eicha, that that the Peh and Ayin, the Ayin and Peh are inverted. Right? Switched around, right? That it says, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says it's because it alludes to the Chet and Meraglim Shamru b'fiem mashalo ra'u beinehem. So we asked if they said with their mouths, what they didn't see with their eyes, right? So if that's the case, should be no psukim with ayin. So why did you put the pasuk with ayin after pei? Should be no pasuk that starts with ayin. But now with what we're saying, it's understood, because once they said what they didn't see, and the people bought it, they started seeing it that way. And it became their reality. Right? Perception is reality. Perspective is reality. And now you can understand that's what God says. No, you cried for nothing, but you believed in it. You made it real. So I said, your Bechir Shochinam, it was in essence Chinam, it was in essence empty, lacking in substance, because how the Meraglim, what they were saying was really not true, right? But you made it real. So, and that's it. The Bechir L'Doros is the direct, you did that. It was in essence Chinam, but you made it real. So I want to take this one step deeper. I want to ask you, did the Meraglim really lie? Actually lie?
This is the way, it was their perception.
Okay. Very good. I want to contrast for a second what the Meraglim said with how Moshe Rabbeinu himself describes coming to Eretz Yisrael. Right? Parshas Eikev. Right? Right, I mean, if you were Marba said already, and you have the words of Parsha Shlach in your head, they're going to the Sukkim and Parshas Eikev are going to ring fantastically similar. If not, I'll read you the Sukkim from our Parsha also. But just 1 second. Here. Shema Yisrael. Atov Yom Esayarden. L'reshet goyim gdoim v'atzim meka. Nations that are bigger and stronger than you. Orim gedolos ubetzuros b'shamayim. Fortified cities, fortified up to the heavens. Am gadol v'ram b'nei anakim, a very great and high nation, mighty nation. The children of the giants. Asher ataya data v'ata shamata. You know and you heard. Mi yisyatze fifnei b'nei anak. Who could stand against the children of the giants? It's almost the exact same words, almost word for word, of the description that the Meraglim said. You want me to read it to you? It's almost word for word. Matter of fact, Moshe Rabbeinu was even, all the Meraglim said. Efes ki azam hayoshev ba'aretz, varim gdol sok zot, v'gam inak reinu sham. Strong nation, fortified cities, and they're the children of the Anakim, the children of the giants are there. Amalek yoshev be'eretz Negev, and Amalek there at the south, and the Chiti Yevusi v'Amora yoshev bahar, v'Achar yoshev al yam, and the Canaanim are on the west, al yada yarden. That's all they said. Moshe Rabbeinu describes the situation the exact same way as the Meraglim. So why is what the Meraglim say Lashon Hara, and what Moshe Rabbeinu does, that's called good Musar and good Chizuk.
He said it in a positive way, in a way to encourage to go to Eretz Yisrael, by the same word, but the others used to diminish and to make a negative statement.
Excellent. Correct. Right? The raw facts were the same. Except that the context of Moshe Rabbeinu is, after he gives this, describes the situation. V'yadat hayom ki Hashem elkechu over v'nei. Hashem is going to be there, walking in front of you. Eishochlo, he's going to be a destructive fire to them. Hu yashmirem v'yachniim lefanechu. He's going to break them. And he's going to subjugate them. He's going to break them for you. V'rashu v'avadetem maher. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu says it in the context of, and despite all that, you're going to win. The Meraglim, speaking the same raw facts, right, say that, right, Lo nuchal losam ki chazaku mimeno, right? We can't do it. We can't take it. Very interesting. Everyone knows that Lashon Hara is true. Right? That's just between Lashon Hara and Motzi Shemra. So sometimes, it really bothers you. How could the Torah legislate against telling the truth? It's true. Public has a right to know. Now, the truth is, the aspect of Lashon Hara that's Ra, right, is the editorial that you put on it. If you could just say the simple, dry facts with zero editorial on it, right, you don't in any way, put a spin, right, there wouldn't be anything wrong with it. Right? What's evil about Lashon Hara is say, but it's the truth. It's not really, really, really the truth. There are facts in the Lashon Hara, but that negative spin, that editorial, that's all your creation. So you're not just reporting the news, you're making the news. And that's what's wrong with the media. So, of course, in this day and age, it's the fake news, right, and alternate facts, right? But once upon a time, right, even assuming that the raw facts stated, are accurate, but the media puts a spin on it, right? So the footage that you might see from CNN, of the Israeli occupation in Gaza, right? They show Israelis shooting bullets at the Palestinians. And of course, it's all it's probably real footage, But the fact that, a second before the Palestinians were throwing rocks and they cut that part out, right? And they cut out, don't make other mention of why the Israelis had to be there in the first place, looking for a terrorist in hot pursuit, right? So they mold, so even though it's like strict facts, right? But they mold, the editorial around it in a negative light, and which we suffer for, Israel suffers for, gets a condemnation every Sheni v'Chamishi in the UN, right? Because that becomes the perception. And that's what's raw about Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara uses, facts, but the aspect of Lashon Hara that's raw, what's the fake reality that you're creating, and the fake perspective is the editorial. I always say that much of the conflict between science and religion could be resolved. I mean, there are people in the room that know better than me, but I've always imagined that the conflict between science and religion could easily be resolved if the scientific community would just say the raw facts, right? Without their editorial that therefore there is no God or therefore there must have been evolution. Just tell us the raw facts that you've observed and you've measured, right? And we could come up with our own editorial that probably could fit very, very comfortably, with what it says in the Chumash, certainly many things that it says in the Kabbalah, right? Could probably stem very, very comfortably if you just stick to the raw facts. The problem is everyone wants to, take the facts and then, superimpose on it their worldview. And they're trying to bring you into their personal universe. And that's what's raw about Lashon Hara. Right? And that's why you can understand, right, the perfect contra, right, to Lashon Hara is the Beis HaMikdash. We lost the Beis HaMikdash because Lashon Hara of the Meraglim. The Bechia L'Doros, because Am Yisrael bought the Lashon Hara. Right? They bought the editorial that the Meraglim put on the facts. Right? Yeah.
I always hearing that. I don't want to stop you, but always hearing that we lost the Beis Hamikdash was a Lashon Hara. The Beis Hamikdash was so many thousands of years later.
Right.
I mean,
But the date Tisha B'Av was set up as a date.
We look at that. There's something missing there. It might be practically correct, but there's always something missing there because the timing is off. So how do we adjust that timing? We go back to Meraglim, we
Right.
come ahead because of Tisha B'Av. But wait a minute, Tisha B'Av is way down the road.
Way down the
all
road.
right?
But it was
We're
on
not
that
even way
date.
back, but even before they even got to Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
Yeah, we got into Eretz Yisrael. We built a Beis Hamikdash. The Shlomo HaMelech was there. Well, something is more. Something is missing. Is it a Gilgal that we're running around
I
here?
didn't say the Lashon Hara, the Meraglim did.
Right.
Why should we suffer for generations? Because they were very...
All right, fine. That's okay. Now, why for generations? Well, you could ask the same question. Why we suffer for generations for the Chet HaEgel also, and only 3,000 people were involved, right? Right. Except that the problem is, the reason why it's for all generations is because these sins were done communally. There was a sense of the whole community and the nation being involved.
I'm sorry, I have...
It's easy for you to say now, right? Right. No, because it was a national sin, and once it's a national entity, it includes all generations. Just like, look, I'll ask you another question. Now, you may like the question more than the answer, I'm afraid, right? Why do you have to keep Torah? You didn't say Na'aseh v'Nishma, they did. Na'aseh, I should. God forgive me for raising the issue, right? Right? No, stay here. There's an answer. Right? The same principle. Once it's a nation is a corporate entity that's inclusive of all generations. That's halacha also in korbanos tzibur. A person, I just tell you halacha from korbanos tzibur. If an individual is chayav a korban chatos, but he dies and he sets the animal aside. He dies before they could offer up on the mizbeach. They can't offer it on the mizbeach anymore. But let's say it was a korban tzibur, right? So even if that whole generation flipped over, right? Because a tzibur, a populace, is really inclusive of all. It's a corporate entity that includes all generations. So there's no such thing as a korban tzibur shemesu ba'aleha. Even if everyone in that generation died, there's still the next generation, and it's all the same tzibur. So, we accepted the Torah as a tzibur, right? And sadly, as a tzibur, the Chet HaEgel was condoned. They stood passively as a tzibur and let the 3,000 perpetrate the Chet HaEgel. And it was, Vayilanu ha'am balaylahu, the whole nation, as a nation, bought the Lashon Hara of the Meraglim. And that's why, and that's how it works.
So the Christians aren't so crazy.
Why? I beg to differ. Why? Why do you say that?
I mean, they say collective guilt because the Sanhedrin, did what they supposedly did with Yashka.
Well, what, maybe it was a collective merit. I mean, what? I mean, it's Chayiv Misa, It was Chayiv Misa.
But the great grandchildren want to do tshuva, so why are they suffering?
What?
No. They're trying to do tshuva here, but they're still suffering.
I know, but the problem is that the cosmic damage is so big because it's a national problem. So it takes many generations, not just one generation, to put it right, because it's a national problem. And the nation is a corporate entity that includes all generations. That's why a national sin will take many generations. But eventually we will fix it. Eventually we're going to fix everything wrong. And not killing that guy. That was the right thing to do. But the ego and the Cheder Moraga we're eventually going to fix, right?
That would be via some Mashiach.
That's it. Correct. All right. All right. So getting back to the issue that we have to, the Beis HaMikdash is a contra to Lashon Hara, in the sense that in Lashon Hara you're creating a fake reality, even if the raw facts are correct, you are making cynical use of those raw facts to impose upon them a picture and a worldview, and that's the Lashon Hara. The Lashon Hara is the negative view, the negative perspective is the Lashon Hara. Right, and it's and that's what gets believed and adopted, and using facts to support and get people to believe and buy into it. The total opposite is the function of the Beis HaMikdash. What do we come to the Beis HaMikdash to do? The Torah always describes as liros, as pneia adon, to see. Yeroa kol skorcha. You bring an olas re'iyah when you come there. It's all about seeing. The amazing thing about a Beis HaMikdash, to give the Beis HaMikdash, is to see the world as it is according to God. It's liros, right? As opposed to the perspective created by Lashon Hara. When Am Yisrael does Aliyah L'Regel of Beis HaMikdash, liros is pnei adon. It's a chance to see the world by God's light, and that's why there's a famous Chazal, Yerushalayim Oro Shel Olam, right? When Hurdas killed out the Chachamim, he felt bad about it, right? And he asked Baba ben Buta, what tshuva should he do? So Baba ben Buta gave him the eitzah to renovate the Beis HaMikdash, which he did an unbelievable job. Chazal say most beautiful building in history was the Beis HaMikdash, the way it looked after Hurdas did a renovation to it, and Baba ben Buta explains why that's his kapara for killing the Chachamim. Hu kava oro shel olam le'asak ba'oro shalom. You extinguish the light of the world because Torah is light. He ner mitzvah Torah or right, but now do something that restores light to the world, and that's the Beis HaMikdash. Never v'noar love goyim. The goyim will swarm to it, but nahara also means in Aramaic light, because the clarity that Torah gives you mentally. The Beis HaMikdash gave it to you mamish visually. That when you came to the Beis HaMikdash, you saw the truth, and then through that experience of seeing the truth, the Shekhinah that's revealed there, you then look at life totally differently. After being exposed to that light, you now see life itself in a new perspective. Right? In that world, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, it would have been very, very hard to be an Apikoros. Right? We go there and you see the Shechina and you see the 10 miracles that happen there daily that Chazal count. It's the difference between hearing and seeing. Right? Now we just talk about that there is a God. Right? In the Beis HaMikdash, you went and you saw that there is a God. The Gemara said on the pasuk in Eicha, "B'machashakim hoshivani kimsom." God put me in the dark, like those dead to the world. Zeh Talmud Bavli. This is the Babylonian Talmud, right? That's interesting Gemara. Now everyone's going to say it's damn true, right? Right? What's a? So it's a very interesting phrase in the Gemara. It says when the Gemara wants to bring a proof, what does it say? It says Toshma. Come here. And that's very interesting. You contrast that with the Yerushalmi or the Zohar. It says, Ta chazi, come and see. Very interesting. Right? Now, the Zohar and the Yerushalmi that were written in Eretz Yisrael use the term, when they try to make a point, come see. The Bavli, written in Chutz La'aretz, says, Toshma, come in here. Right? So now is an interesting stylistic difference also. Anyone who's done comparative sugyas between Bavli and Yerushalmi knows that the Bavli is a lot more mitpulpal. There's a lot more dialectic and give and take in Bavli. That's why the sugyas are generally longer. Sometimes what's a few pages in the Bavli of argumentation, the Yerushalmi resolves like that from a pasuk. If you ever, it's very that the Yerushalmi is a lot more connected to the psukim and sees immediate answers in psukim. The Bavli is more mefalpel, right? Because Eretz Yisrael, right? Eretz Asher Eine Hashem Okecha Ba. The gift of Eretz Yisrael is that the environment that is visible is seeing the world in God's eyes and by God's light. That is the gift of living in Eretz Yisrael. It's called Eretz Hashem Eine Hashem Okecha Ba, and the mitzvah of lirga is liros, to see. Right in Eretz Yisrael, that's it's not just ideology. You actually see, right? You actually see what the Torah preaches. In Chutz La'aretz, you hear about it and you believe in it, right? In Eretz Yisrael, you mamish see it. And that's why the Kuzari says that nevuah is, which is prophecy. The prophet doesn't figure out; he sees in prophetic vision. Nevuah, says the Kuzari, is only in Eretz Yisrael. And he says the Nevi'im that were mitnabeh in Chutz La'aretz, like Yecheskel, like Yirmiyahu, right? It was only for the sake of Eretz Yisrael. The Kuzari writes that. Because Eretz Yisrael is all about seeing, right? Seeing reality as it is, seeing the reality by God's light, seeing reality through God's eyes. Chutz La'aretz is where everything that the Torah says is still true, you just don't merit to see it. Right? In Eretz Yisrael, you mamish see it. Right, so in Chutz La'aretz, we're figuring out, right? And in Eretz Yisrael, we mamish see. So the Zohar and the Yerushalmi, written in Eretz Yisrael, tochazi, come see, and there's no elaborate proofs. It's straight to the point. You just see it, right? The Talmud Bavli, written in Chutz La'aretz, you're figuring out. So it's Toshma, come here, and there's a lot of pilpul to make sure that because you're figuring out and you're calculating. You're not seeing, and you have to also double check since you're calculating and speculating. So you have to raise every single havamina and knock it out, to make sure you're left with the real, pristine truth. Right? So by accepting the perspective of the Meraglim, right, listening to what came out of their peh, change what you see with the ayin. So you're not zochet to be ki ayin ba'ayin yiru b'shuv Hashem tzion. Right, that we see things eye to eye. When we go back to Zion, that's going to be in the future. That we have to get back to that. Because they adopted a warped reality, a warped perspective, and the whole gift of Eretz Yisrael in general, and the Beis Hamikdash in particular, is to see things from God's perspective. So that was why the onesh was. You accept the false perspective on reality, you're not going to be in the land and have a Beis Hamikdash which shows you the correct perspective, if you're willing to buy into a false perspective, right? Until that great day, right? And you'll find that all the prophecies and all the tefillas that talk about the future all talk about re'iyah, seeing. V'hareinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nechamas Tzion yirecha. V'sechazena einenu b'shuv chal Tzion brachamim. Ki ayin b'ayin yiru b'shuv Hashem Tzion. I could go on and on and on. All the tefillas and all the nevuos talk about, and we will see, and we will see, and we will see. God show us, right? Because the truth is, God is the absolute king of the world right here, right now. Just it's hard to see that. We're in Hester Panim, right? The divine majesty is concealed. Right, the Gula is when the mind is revealed, right, and at that time all Jews will go back to Eretz Yisrael because that's where that is the embassy where it's meant to be revealed. Right? So we have to be, first of all, learn from the story of the Meraglim, right? That the pickle that it put us into, and what our situation is like today as a result. The Bechia L'Doros is that buying into a false perspective forever ruined our perspective on life, right? That's only going to be properly, fully restored with the Gula Shlema, right? It was temporarily restored, with the Beis Hamikdash of Shlomo, then the Beis Hamikdash of Ezra, but it wasn't a full tikkun, and that's why it fell apart again, right? We're still yearning, right, for, to live in a world where we see everything from God's perspective, and what we will add with our speech is just an enhancement, that our speech will just enhance God's world, and not make up editorials that go against God's world. So the So the Rebbe should help, right? You have to understand that the terrible, lethal force of Lashon Hara it's to bring a warped reality to the world. Right? And you have to understand, we live in the world of fake news, as our president says, right? But the fake news is not just CNN. No, it's the textbooks also. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's all fake news, right? We have to we have to know that, and we have to realize that. And with this, we can understand a cryptic Maharal. The Maharal asked a simple question, right? There's one parak in Eicha where the whole Aleph Beis is correct. Right, that's the first parak. After that, it begins this inversion of Pei and Ayin from the second parak till the second to the last. The last parak is not in the order of the Aleph Beis at all. Right, so ask the Maharal. Right, so why is the first parak in the proper order? If it's all about, because the Meraglim put the mouth before the eyes, and because the mouth came first, that's a changed perspective. Why is the first parak in the correct order of Ayin and then Pei? Says the Maharal to teach you that that's the proper order. That's what he writes. What do you mean? Like the source of the proper order of the Aleph Beis is the first parak in Eicha. If not for that, we wouldn't know that the Seder of Aleph Beis goes, Aleph, Samach Ayin Pei Tzadi. Right? He means to say like this: you have to be reminded that life itself now is corrupt because of Cheder Meraglim. It ruined our perspective on reality, and you have to be aware that we live in a reality where people are selling you perspectives, right? And totally alienating you from the natural perspective that God wanted the universe to have. And you have to be vigilant and realize that you're living in a world of Pei before Ayin. Everyone's telling you what reality is. And you have to know it's not that way, right? You have to know it's the opposite of the way they're telling you. It's Ayin and then Pei. Don't let anyone tell you what reality is, right? You look and you see for yourself, right? Which the truth is, that's what set Avraham Avinu apart from all the other people of his generation. There were stories there were certain, policies that were accepted. And once, like we said, once something is accepted, you can't help but see it that way, right? Avraham Avinu said, I'm not going to let anyone tell me what is. I'm going to observe for myself. I'm going to put my ayin before my pei. And he re-examined reality by himself. And from that, after looking with his ayin, he spoke and told the whole world that there's a God, as opposed to the world that he was living in. Everyone was saying, right, what the perspective ought to be. And the first parak in Eicha reminds us about that. It's ayin before pei, right? And that's the way it ought to be, as opposed to what the Rag did, put pei before ayin. Thank you very much.